An opportunity that the fourth estate in Kenya can stand out and be counted, and people would say they actually stood for the truth regardless the ramifications or consequences that came their way based on how they treated the BBI report. Do you foresee, because in 2010 we supported the more collectively, we supported the constitution that we are under right now. And minus that, you said this earlier, Mwinzi, it probably wouldn't have gone through hadn't it got the support that it had. So this BBI needs the support, one way or another, of the media. Will we sit collectively?
I think that's a tricky one. That's a tricky question. You know, it's very, very hard to say now that the media are going to rally behind a report that has not been released and whose contents we don't know. That's number one. Number two, even if the report is here now and we go through it and we decide, yeah, this is a good thing for the nation and all that, I'm not sure whether the Media Owners Association is going to come together and say, we've gone through this report, it has good tidings for this nation, so let's all rally behind it as a media industry. My feeling is the best way to go about it is to report it, analyze it, as we've done with other things. You know, we've reported the Constitution, we reported the gaps in the Constitution, we reported the politicians, as they are saying, we've reported, you know, economic policies, we've reported the debt. Those are things that we do out of the ordinary ways that we report any other thing. So the BBI is important, the report is important, but we should not look at it as this one thing that all the media owners should, you know, unite for or unite against.
Is that what happened with the 2010 Constitution?
There were a lot of other things behind, you know, the media support of the 2010 Constitution. If you remember, we had been rallying around a lot of other things. We had been agitating, not just as the media, but as the country. We had been agitating for a change of the Constitution. We had come from a dark era, and we needed, you know, a new set of laws to govern us. So we were in some sort of a desperate situation. And in any case, the Constitution was the product of a collaborative process. We knew what was in the Constitution even before we passed it. We had gone through it, Bomas, Naivasha, all these things. There was a process, and you know, we monitored it. We gave our own submissions. We monitored the submissions of other people. We put to the task the team working on the document. So we knew we were not agitating around a document that we had not read, and we are not agitating around a document, you know, just for the sake of, let's say, you know, change the Constitution, let's move forward to another sphere of political governance. Okay. No. So we cannot draw parallels now between the BBI report and the constitutional review. Because even though there have been submissions to the BBI initiative, the team that has gone through around the country, even though there have been submissions, we don't know the shape of those submissions. We don't know how they were captured. We don't know the motivations of everything. So unless we know, you know, there have been some, and I was talking to some people the other day, and they were asking, how come we don't know? There is no preliminary report, for instance, of this report. And just like the politicians have been arguing here, we are, you know, going at each other about a report that we've not read. We do not know the contents of that report. So what are we arguing about? What is this political bickering all about? Unless we know the contents of that report and examine them, we cannot then say we are going to rally around it. We are going to, as a media organization or as a media industry, we cannot say that we are going to support it.
Julie, you mentioned the scenario that is in other democracies where there are some, you know, left-leaning media houses, but is that really something that can be a reality here? It's more an ideal situation, but I mean, there's a first for everything, but with our reality here.
I think it happens without us acknowledging that it's happening. For example, in 2017, it was very clear that which media houses are on which side. Even within newsrooms, there were divides, and they were very clear, and people could see them. They just didn't voice them. I think we need to take that next step, because it's within our law to be journalists are allowed to be partisan within the law to just say that we're going to report the truth, which often is different from the facts, but we're going to try and report truth and fact, but we're going to disclose every time we have a bias so that you know when you're reading the Standard of the Nation that this is my leaning. I think it's very possible. It happens without us giving voice to it. And I also think that media houses, per the law again and per the code of conduct, should be independent. They should use editorial judgment to make their own decisions. So for example, BBI coming out tomorrow, whenever it is, people say they don't know what is in it, which is slightly dishonest because some people do know what is in it. But when it comes out, I don't think it's a case of every media house rallying together for one specified result. Every media house is independent. They should use their own editorial judgment and decide, is this a good or a bad thing, or is this a neutral thing? And as I said before, report the facts and then use your judgment and your particular ideology to report to your audiences.
And Victor, you said in your article again that this should not be reported as the answer or the panacea of every problem in Kenya. You know, and we are having headlines, and I don't know what you think about this one, but this particular one of the Standard that people should expect, the moment of truth. You know, and you know, it says here, President Uhuru Kenyatta and ODM leader Raila Odinga receive handshake report they sold to Kenyans as the cure for all problems. Was a long way to worth the while. Are we building a false expectation? Are you worried, first of all, with this kind of headline?
That's part of the discussion we're having. That you know, without contextual reporting, if we already start pushing that, then challenges will be there.
Yes.
Because I'm sure there's no single report that can solve all problems in Kenya. That one would be a lie. I mean, it will provide a few things here and there, pointers. Because like, I mean, Agenda 4, they are still there. We never finished the Agenda 4 items. There have been other, I mean, the truth and reconciliation. I mean, there have been quite a number of reports, but some of the issues will be solved in context.
Yes.
I mean, it's not the 9 points that are whole problems in this country. And for example, you wouldn't say you solve, like ethnicity in this country, where reports have been done, studies about the composition, for example, the Public Service Commission. And would you go to sack people all tomorrow and reorganize? And, you know, there are some things that cannot be solved in a day. So some of those things need time. I mean, there's corruption cases going on, but there's rule of law. You will not say tomorrow you are going to get all people who are corrupt and stop all convictions and processes. So some of those things are processes that cannot just be terminated and other things. So I am sure the implementation and the solving of problems in Kenya using BBI report must have contextualized. We'll have some plan, I mean, implementation plan, and there will be the low-hanging fruits that can be solved with the report, but there are things that might need, I mean, a more sober discussion around them and a longer-term way of looking at how to solve them. Because some of the things like, for example, where they might require, constitutional review needs a referendum. You know, there are no things you solve in a day. So that's what, to me, that's what I was talking about, that we need to provide context. We not to provide, if this can't work, then we are dead. Or if this works, then those who are saying no must leave this country. You know, that's not the kind of debate we are talking about. We are saying, let's listen. And the time the report was being collected and the time they are reading the report, some other things have happened in between. So they might have suggested something that has already been overtaken by events. So you can't force it and say it must, if this problem has already been sorted out. So that's the context I was talking about, that let's provide analysis in a way that helps people pick a few things. For example, how do businessmen benefit from that report? How do we researchers benefit from that report? How do the different people, how do the politicians benefit from that report? Yes. Because like we said, this report came from a political process, but it's not meant to solve only political problems. They might have something they have suggested, maybe how to redo the Anti-Corruption Commission, you know, for example, and how. So that's why I was saying that various people can benefit from that report in different ways, so long as we provide a context, provide room for more nuanced debate, honest discussions around. And that will not stop politicians. That's what we are saying. It will not prevent doing from what they do. That's the business they do. Politicians are paid and they're living from politicking. So you can't stop them. Yes. But we also have a duty, like we said, as professionals. And there's nothing called Kenya media. I've told people many times, there's media in Kenya. These guys are in fierce competition, standard and national, so they never sit together to agree on it. Sometimes their headlines just find themselves to be similar. But it's not that they have sat somewhere and decided, this is the way we are going to cover this. Those things are not there. These guys are fighting. Mwinzi is here looking for how his weekend will outsell standard. So some of those things are not there, but people are discussing. Some of the discussion will be made. I am sure. I mean, at what level? Even the media houses are consulting some of the lawyers, political analysts, to help them in understanding some of the provisions of those reports.
Let me hold you on that point, because on arguments in panels or discussions, you find, pro or con kind of conversation and argument, those who support and those who don't. What's your view on that? In fact, you're from Naivasha, and you had a conversation on how media houses should carry themselves in holding these conversations that are, for the nation.
We said that you must be tough. You colleagues who are hosting some of these programs, it's not easy, but you must be tough. You are the host of the program. And once we are here, we are guests. And we must abide by something. So even if Victor will hate you, but you have stopped him on purely professional issues, then be it. The issue of endorsing statements, some of you will bring colleagues here who are saying the law is very clear, but they are misleading people, but we are just saying, yes, yes, Mheshimiwa, yes. Those are the kind of things we are talking about, that where somebody is lying, where somebody is misleading people, you must be able to stop them and tell them, there you are lying. That's what came out from Naivasha, that people are saying, some of our colleagues have been so lenient to guests that we allow people just monologues, and people will read and lie, and you are not stopping them.
Yes.
That's what we are talking about. If you are going to be strong, I mean with facts, and that also means, Mark, you must prepare before you bring guests in the studio to say, you must have read the BBI report. Yes. We don't want a situation where you bring guys and you are equally misinformed, so that in the debate, you are not helping anybody to know anything. That's what we are saying. I mean, and people accept it. Sometimes some of us are lazy in the manner. We have just said journalism, I'll do that report. But there are people who take their time, and we pride in them, such journalists who get their time, yes, read, analyze, talk to experts to help them. By the time you read an article, you feel educated. Yeah. Even if you hate that, but you feel benefited from reading that article. But there are those who do return to sender journalism, who will just be returning the report again to the writers. Yes. Nothing additional, no interpretation, no contextualization. That's what people are saying in Naivasha, that we can no longer afford to do that. If content is the king, as we are saying, then it must be quality content. That somebody would want to come to your website or to buy your newspaper, yes, because he's benefiting. It's not just about headlines and clicking and what.
Yeah, and content is king. But Julie, you've been a host of a show at KTN, and you also know that ratings, there's pressure for ratings. And in your honest view, I don't know if you switched off your TV as well. I meet many people who say, oh, I'm sorry, I don't watch TV anymore. And you can say the same if it's true. But in your honest opinion, the analysts that we bring on to discuss certain issues, are we taking Kenyans for a ride? And especially the way we shape conversations.
I think 70% of the time, the discussions are not in-depth enough or informative enough. Like Victor says, on both sides, not enough research has gone into it, or time to understand the different issues very deeply. And then there's also a problem of having the same cycle of people coming on all the time saying the same things.
And they come from NTV, they go to KTN, they go to Citizen, they're the same guys.
They go to the morning show, they go to the afternoon show, they go to the radio show, yes, they keep on rotating. Yes. And then what happens is that now we're in an echo chamber. We hear the same things all the time. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we don't, but we know what to expect. So there's nothing new coming out of it. I do understand, as a previous talk show host, it takes a lot of time to research and to understand things which normally you wouldn't perhaps be interested in, or which are outside your sphere of expertise. Yeah. But that needs to be done. Also, media houses are suffering from a resource problem. There's just not enough of hosts to go around, or experts in any particular field to go around. There's a cash crunch problem, there's a laying off problem, there's an industry-wide problem in terms of the media and the changing models and all these things that are happening that are externally putting so much pressure on the industry. So you can't expect, I think we expect, again, too much, but what we get is too little. We need to find the middle ground where at least for example, you've read the BBI report, at the very least. So when you're discussing with somebody like Gadara, for example, he's not embarrassing, not you particularly, Mark, the host. Not you, not embarrassing you or me or whoever it is who's hosting the show, because for example, you can call out an inconsistency or an inaccuracy. Perhaps you know what happened during Bomas 1 and Bomas 2. You can draw parallels, you know. If you have just a bit more information, that would be very helpful, because what happens most of the time is people listen to radio or watch TV, and then what they hear, what you say and what your guests say is now the truth. And many times it's half truth, or it's truth peppered with falsehood, or maybe it's just false altogether. So I think we need to take a greater responsibility in understanding that every word that proceeds from our mouth, sorry for being biblical, many people are going to take that as
no
gospel
apologies
truth.
for being biblical here. I agree with
And,
that.
and calling out people.
Yes.
The issue of research came out. The Bal mentioned it, and others. I mean, that how much are we hosts supported by research, behind the scenes people who help you in debunking, dealing with the falsehood these colleagues will be bringing out. We need a sequence of support teams that will be helping you as you analyze, but they are doing quick yellow papers.
And someone watching this might say that is why you're Githeri Media, because you're just giving excuses. But it's the
No,
reality
it's the
of the
reality,
newsrooms,
we
because
are prepared.
Mwinzi, and you don't have to give it all away, but in terms of preparation, to give the reader the best, because people don't just stop at the TV. Some actually switched off the TV and radios. They're reading the paper because they feel that there's more information there. What's winning? What's winning? The winning combination for you? Because to be honest, there is the view that even in TV and radio stations, there is the trend of hiring cheaper labor. And you lose out on institutional memory, people who have experience, who've been in the game for years. What's the winning combination as we prepare for this BBI coverage?
I think the winning combination is just the basics, just the traditional basics of journalism. That we have to be analytical, we have to be informative, we have to be balanced, and we have to be objective, completely. That's the winning combination through and through. Analysis is very important in this age, because a lot of people will have the information, but they may not, have the background information. They may not have the possibility of looking at a lot of other things. We in the media industry now stand at a very good place, because of our sources, because of our interactions with the people who make decisions for this country, the policymakers and all that. It's possible for me to go through a story, call one person, call another, and start building a picture around that. My analysis is not just me sitting down and saying, this is what means for you. It's me talking to all these different people who are experts in their different fields and beginning to, build an image, paint a picture of how this report or whatever it is that I'm reporting on is going to affect.
Well, we get criticized a lot for this, quoting sources that would not want to be named because they can't speak on the matter, and carrying on with this as authority on a story.
I wouldn't expect anyone to speak anonymously on the BBI report, for instance. we publish anonymous sources. Yes, we do, but we only publish anonymous sources when we feel revealing their identities would put them at risk.
Yeah, but they will come
for
through.
Instance,
yes.
So, for instance, if it's a crime story, or mega corruption and all that, and there are people who are giving us information about a lot of other stuff, we might not reveal the identities of our sources. However, I wouldn't expect a political story or a policy story or economic story that does not have any, crime bearing, or that might not injure anybody's reputation, put you or your life or the life of your family at risk. Yes. I don't expect a politician, for instance, to be commenting about things anonymously.
Yeah, but some people might say, a source close to the powers that be are talking about a split into. And anyway,
the thing is, I think journalism is built around sources. It's built around sources. Without a source, a journalist is basically legless. Okay. Yeah. You need to have a good, credible, reliable, believable, authoritative source for you to say, I am a journalist of repute in this country.
Honestly, Mwinzi, are you ready as a managing editor for the weekend editions to take the hit and lose out on possible revenue for standing your ground on this particular report, however it might come out in the recommendations, as we cover it and as it develops, and lose favor with one side or the other, and that would translate to losing favor to your readers from certain regions?
You ask me honestly, would I? I'll tell you this. My journalism at the Nation Media Group is guided by the Nation Media Group Bible on Journalism, which is our editorial policy. And I have had a lot of conversations with a lot of people asking, why did you do this? Why did you write this headline? Why did you publish this photo? Why didn't you not? A lot of other issues. And my response has always been, I have a Bible here that guides me. So for as long as a story is within the editorial guidelines of the group, I will run it and I will defend it.
All right.
There are a lot of stories that we've touched. There are a lot of stories that we've run at the Nation that, you know, have not run in elsewhere. They haven't. There are a lot of stories that have cost us commercial revenue because the advertisers say, no, we are going to withdraw your advertising revenue. There are a lot of stories that have cost us political issues. Politicians say we are not. You remember we were banned in some regions. Why? It's because you run a story based on its merit as a piece of journalism.
Okay.
Full stop. It's not based on any other thing.
Less journalists care about journalism.
Yes, and we forget about all these other
and
things.
some of those the other things will be dealt with. You know,
Yes.
let Mwinzi struggle with the story, put it on the table. Now, whether the commercial guys want to kill it, that's another business. That is another discussion.
Right.
But let them care about the stories, factual, professional stories present. Then those things are not unique to Kenya. The things of stories dying, revenue, corporate terrorists, terrorizing journalists are global things.
Okay.
And people must be ready to deal with it. You know, but if you care so much, if you cry so much about the revenue that you lose because of carrying this story, then you will stop being a journalist.
Final word on this, Julie, before we take off with the story.
I think the reality is that we're severely compromised, let's just admit, in terms of needing to stay alive, needing to produce papers, needing to go on air and do the news. For our business to survive, we have become severely compromised. Of course, we do still report loads of good stories and loads of facts and truth, but the reality is that a lot of the time, things that would come out don't come out because of external pressure. At the same time, journalists on the inside should have the guts to defend their stories. But as Victor says, whether or not those stories run becomes now another issue. So if you have, as a journalist, have fulfilled the calling of your profession, looked for a good story and it's truthful, and you stand by it, then put it on the table, and whatever happens next is beyond you. So I think this is where the separation between journalism and the business of journalism comes into play, because there's definitely a tight line that both of us walk there.
Let's just see if this is a time when we will stand and be counted for, being for the truth, existing for the truth and nothing but the truth for you. So help us, God. We'll take a quick break and we'll be back with the stowaway story that crash landed, perhaps, on matters on merited facts, and we'll have the decisions that were made here at Nation Media Group to follow up on that particular story and see where it ends.